All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about my top 5 baits for August. Now, here's the thing. We're going to break it down a little bit different than we usually do. We're kind of going to break it down by categories, but I'm going to give you 5 baits, and they're all going to be in the same 5 categories, but they may be a little different from each other, and I'm going to give you the reasons why and stuff, because, you know, fishing conditions are always different and stuff, and it's really hard for me to give you just say, 5 baits and say, hey, here, run these, you'll catch fish. And times you will, and other times you won't. So either way, guys, stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, guys, so the first one we're going to talk about is a category that I really love, and that is top water. So as you may know, there's typically 2 kinds of people that fish in the summer. They're either going to be fishing from early in the morning till, about midday or early morning, try to get off before that boat traffic gets on the water, or typically they're gonna, fish the nights. And I'm not one of those guys that fish night tournaments. I just don't like it. I can't see good as it is, so, I just don't feel comfortable fishing at night. So one of the biggest things that factor in, especially that early morning bite up until about midday, and sometimes it carries on throughout the entire day, is a topwater. So topwater, this one right here, this is the head and torpedo. Okay, now this is the clear version, but here's the thing. I've cut that back hook off, put a split ring on it, and then I've got that treble feathered hook on there. Why? As I always talk about, it is simply to give some kind of contrast in the water, give those fish something to target. It just makes it super easy for them. So now, why would I throw this head and torpedo over the walking bait? So the walking bait is typically going to be when that water is just still calm. Okay, it's just dead slick. There's not a whole lot going on, but they've seen it over and over and over again. I don't know if you've noticed it, but I've definitely noticed it on my fisheries. They have really got to see the top water walking baits a lot. And there's a lot of fish passing it up, and there's still fish who's not passing it up. But I have noticed, especially on those days where I can't get bit on the top water walking bait, I swap over this little head and torpedo right here that's clear with that feathered hook on it, and it's so subtle. It doesn't have a whole lot of crazy action. It's got that, that little whatever you call it, little metal blade on the back of it that causes a little bit of disturbance in the water, but it's nothing real loud like a Whopper plopper or anything like that. So it's very subtle, very easy to get bites on, whether the water is slick, calm, or it's got a little bit of chop to it. So, don't let the torpedo prop baits, anything like that, pass by you. So, always keep one of those tied on. Now, sticking to the category of the top water baits, like I said, it's going to be a little different. I'm going to give you 5 baits, all in the same category. But here's the thing. You may have some for a specific reason, and then the other ones that I'm showing you, you may not, but it's all going to be in that same category. Now, this is the other top water bait that I really, really like to use, especially in the month of August when that wind starts blowing real hard, or you got a lot of boat traffic. This right here, this is the Whopper plopper, or well, this is the Berkeley Chopo. This is the Berkeley version of the Whopper plopper. But this thing right here, it causes a lot of disturbance in the water. It's really loud, it's really annoying. It's kind of like a buzz bait in a way, but it's a really, really fun bite. When they want it, man, they want it. But typically, in the middle of the day, when that boat traffic gets stirred up and we've got a lot of fish out on the points or something like that, they're positioned, suspended, and looking up to feed up, but they're not necessarily wanting to break the surface just because of all the traffic and the pressure and stuff like that. This right here is perfect for those middle of the day bites. Now, this is a chrome. I typically run that chrome when we've got those really, really bright blue sunny days, and then my translucent baits, if they're not biting this, or if it's just a little cloudy, I like throwing that translucent with a little bit of white in it. But typically, you know, it's going to be bright blue sunny days. There's going to be a lot of boat traffic. The chrome is just hard to beat. It just mimics bait fish, so, and that's what they're after this time of year. So, you know, the Chopo, Whopper, plopper, whatever, similar style baits, whatever you feel comfortable buying, it's a great technique to use, especially when the boat traffic and then the winds are blowing real hard. All right, so now for my setup, this is the Impulse Energy Series rod. I've had this rod, one of the first companies I ever signed with when I started fishing tournaments, and I've still got this rod. Great company, great products. I absolutely love Impulse rods. But this is the 6'8" medium. This is the top water specific rod. I believe it's a Zell Rowland series, probably. Yeah, Zell Rowland helped design this rod. If you don't know who Zell is, you'll need to get into the fishing world. He's old school, but very good fisherman, very, very smart man. But either way, you know, it's just designed to throw top water baits, and you're not going to miss as many fish. That's one of the key things about throwing top water. You really need to be careful about what you're using and understand why you're using it. So that 6'8", it's not so long that I can't, or it's not so short that I can't make a super long cast, but it's also very, very giving. So I don't want that real stiff rod because it's going to take that bait away from them a lot of times. Now, what I do to team, you know, with that bend in the rod, monofilament. This is a 20-pound monofilament. 20-pound monofilament is perfect for just about any application. And then I team it up with a 7:1 gear ratio reel. This is the Lew's American Hero. I like Lew's American Heroes. They're cheap, they're good reels. Buy whatever you feel comfortable with, but I suggest, you know, don't go too high in the gear ratio. You still want torque, but you know, you still need that speed just in case they hit it from behind, they go running with it or something like that. You need to take up a lot of line really quick because you're using a short rod when you're throwing your top water baits. But either way, you know, if you have trouble with the 6'8", jump up to like 7'3", but keep that same medium action, medium moderate action. You also keep that monofilament. Monofilament also floats, so if you run fluorocarbon, it'll sink and it'll actually pull the nose of your bait down, and it can deter it from working correctly. So just be aware of that. But either way, that's my setup. That's how I run my top water. Pretty much everything top water except for buzz baits, but either way, that's a whole different topic. All right, so another go-to for me, especially you know, late July and then all through August, Flutter spoon. Okay, this is the Strike King Sexy Spoon. The reason I run the Strike King Sexy Spoon, it's not this huge difference compared to other brands, but this is the brand that I've built the most confidence in. And it's 3 inches, okay? So I'm not throwing that huge Flutter spoon. I do have some Sexy spoons in there that are that 4-inch, 4 or 4.5, something like that. But I typically stick to the smaller spoons if I can. Not only does it seem to trigger more bites with the smaller spoon, but it still triggers those big bites, okay? And what I'm doing with this bait is I'm throwing it out there, and once I throw it out there, I'm popping my rod kind of violently to help trigger those bites. Usually 1 or 2 pops, and then I'll let it flutter back down. 1 or 2 pops, let it flutter back down. Reeling up my slack here and there. It depends on what depth I want to keep this bait at. If they're suspending that 10-foot range, then obviously I want to keep this spoon in that 5 to 8, you know, foot range, somewhere around in there. You'll get a feel for it the more you use it. One of the biggest things that I do, I take that ginormous hook off the back of it and I put a size 4 Gamakatsu EWG hook. You can also buy the Mustads. Actually, this one right here, hold on. Actually, this one right here is the Mustad. But Gamakatsu or Mustad, they both have the EWGs. I've had good luck with both of them. Buy whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you can afford. But I would highly suggest swapping that back hook to a smaller hook. Number one, your hookup ratio is going to go up, especially, you know, if you're fishing spotted bass or smallmouth fisheries, you kind of want that smaller hook anyways, okay? Because my biggest thing is with the Flutter spoon, I really don't want to snag these fish, especially by accident. So, you know, putting that smaller hook on there ensures that I get them in the mouth, okay? And you ain't really got to worry about snagging the fish and harming the fish or anything like that. I know. Somebody give me crap in the comments about caring about the fish, but I do. I care about them. So my setup for this, this is the blues. This is an old Speed Spool, the Mark Rose versions. You know, the key thing is a 7:1 gear ratio. I want some speed, but I also want the torque. Okay, speed's really going to be able to catch up to those fish, especially if they come up from under the spoon, start swimming up. You can take up your line real quick. But I team it up with a 7'4" heavy. So the 7'4", that's going to allow me, when I pull up and I'm reeling down at the same time, it's going to take up a lot of line. Okay, so I don't really have to you know, sacrifice torque for speed, and I don't have to sacrifice speed for torque or anything like that. I'm kind of in that perfect balance. That's what I feel comfortable running. 15-pound fluorocarbon also. Monofilament's fine if that's what you want to run, but I do not run braid on spoons. A lot of people do. I do not run braid on spoons. No stretch. I do like a little bit of give, so you know, that's my setup for spoons. All right, so now the next category we're going to talk about is square bills. Okay, so you know, a lot of people run the square bills, especially during the spring, to cover a lot of water. Here's the thing about square bills. It's never not a good time to run a square bill, because you can cover a lot of water, and especially with it being summer and the fish are more aggressive, you can cover a lot of water, be more aggressive, and find those active fish once you locate them, especially if you're not using forward-facing sonar or anything like that. A square bill is a great way to find fish. I do use forward-facing sonar now, but I still revert back to the old school techniques. I typically only use my forward-facing sonar if I'm chasing fish that are on bait fish or something like that, instead of using my 2D. That way I can stay on those fish better, but I still use the same tactics and stuff like that when I'm going fishing. So here's the thing. With a square bill or a round bill, anytime I'm running a crankbait, I put this, what do you call it? Little clip, you know, where you can change your baits out. I got this technique brought to me about putting the clips on here by Mikey Balls Fishing. And I was, what he was talking about, it made a whole lot of sense. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start running it like that and see how it works. Well, I had a specific crankbait, and it's this Thunderhawk A10 right here. This bait right here, I've had a lot of good success with, but with that being said, it and some other crankbaits that I have, I don't know if the balance is off a little bit or what, but they like to run to the left. I don't know why, but they like running to the left. They don't like running straight. They don't like running right to left. There's specific crankbaits that I have that like running left. This, with that clip on there, allows the bait to run freely. So it will actually hunt left, hunt right, hunt straight. It all depends on the position of my rod, where I've got my rod tip, whether it's 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock, you know, 11 o'clock or whatever. I can control this bait a lot better. And I was afraid, you know, these were going to bend out and stuff. You know, I caught that 5+ on that Thunderhawk, and then that 3 right behind it, never retied or anything. And this is the same clip that I was using on it. So either way, do that. Just give it a shot. 100% give Mikey Balls credit for that, because I would have never really thought nothing about it until then. But either way, this is a square bill made by Excite Baits. Now this is the blue with the translucent. The key thing is the blue with the translucent. Okay, so the translucent bait, this is typically what I'm going to run in my clear water fisheries, that clean clear water. This right here is something that it's not popping out like, wow, look at me, or it's not something that they can just see straight through, or they're kind of having a hard time seeing it. When I'm burning this bait, and I'm burning it, I got the rod tip in the water, and I mean, I'm moving it. This bait right here, it really helps you locate fish. You can cover a lot of water. Little benefit tournament we fished, I mean, shoot, we covered, I don't know, we probably covered more water that day than that guy that fished it with me probably covers, you know, in a month. So, you know, you can cover a lot of water with this. You can fish something out. I mean, we fished a whole stretch that typically takes people anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to fish. We fished it in about 15 minutes and pulled in 2 off, just running this. I mean, so, you know, you can eliminate a lot of water quickly. Now, the other square bill I want to talk about, this is one that I've really reverted to, especially to find the bigger fish. This is the Thunderhawk A10. Not sponsored by this company or anything, but they did send me baits. And when they sent me these baits, pretty much, you know, like, I don't know if I'm gonna like them, especially this thing, the way it looks and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. You know, They talked very good about them. Sure, send it to me. They sent it to me, and I've been running the crap out of it. You can tell by, I don't know if you can tell by the back of it. It's all ate up. The side of it's all ate up. The nose is all scratched up. But either way, the key thing is the brim color. Okay, so this brim color, you're gonna have a lot of fish this time of year chasing bait fish, and it's hard to pull off of those fish to find other fish. And you know, kind of like I say all the time, it's hard to leave fish to find fish. But if you're not catching the size off of the points that are chasing shad, then you may want to revert back to fish that are eating brim and crawfish and stuff like that. This bait right here mimics that brim very, very well, and this is a very aggressive bait. It is. It does come through cover really well, really, really well. I highly advise putting the little clip on there to let this bait run freely because it's got a very aggressive hunting action. But you know, you can buy this bait. It's already got the EWGs on it. You ain't got to swap nothing out. You tie it on and it's good to go. Besides the clip, obviously. But either way, I would highly suggest giving this bait a try, especially if you're fishing a fishery that's just loaded with brim. It doesn't have a ton of shad or anything like that. Or you know, you got a lot of people hunting after the fish that are chasing shad, and you want to go chase something different. Your brim color is just going to be really good. Just give Thunderhawk a shot if you don't mind. I really, really enjoyed this bait. I think you will too. Now my setup for cranking, same as always, 7-foot medium cranking rod, medium moderate pretty much is what this is. You know, there's tons of good brands out there. That I've still got my duckets from when I worked with Ducket, but either way, you know, Lew's makes a good one. 13 Fishing makes some good ones. Lew's makes some good ones. Shimano, buy whatever you can afford, whatever you feel comfortable with. But that 7-foot moderate action, medium moderate action is definitely key. I want that play, especially when I'm using fluorocarbon. I want a lot of play. That way I do have it. I can run the fluorocarbon efficiently, but I also have that give, so I don't really have to worry about running monofilament. And that's the thing too, monofilament floats so it can actually pull your bait up. With fluorocarbon, it sinks, so what happens is I can get a little bit more depth out of it, or I can hit that exact depth that I need to. So my reel, this is a 6/8 to 1. This is a slower gear ratio reel. You're not going to wear yourself out as much running a slower gear ratio. You're not going to wear yourself out, and you're not going to wear your bearings and stuff out inside your reel. And you got a lot of torque. So, you know, fishing these square bills around cover and stuff, I really don't want the fish to, once it grabs, like if I'm throwing it next to a brush pile or something, I don't want that fish to be able to grab that bait and have all the control in the world to get in that brush pile. With that give in the rod, it allows him to do his head shake or whatever he needs to do, but with that low torque, I can still get that fish out away from there without having to worry about pulling the fish or pulling the bait out of the fish's mouth or anything like that. Now, if you just hook into a hog, there just ain't a whole lot you can do. But you know, your normal fish from that pound to 4 pound range, you're going to be able to get them away from that cover really well. 12-pound fluorocarbon, or well, I'm sorry, 15-pound fluorocarbon when I'm with my square bills. Now, if I'm running round bills on my you know, my bigger rod for my deep diving crankbaits and stuff, I'm typically going to go to that 15-pound if I can. Now, if I've got to hit that exact depth, then I'm going to run the 12 still, but I'm still going to run the split or the clip on there and stuff. But 99% of the time with your crankbaits, you definitely want to go with that 12-pound. That way you get the maximum depth. Just check your line a lot, make sure you're not ain't getting any nicks, or you know that there's no line shredding or anything like that. So either way, that's my setup. All right, so now this is one that I've used ever since I was a kid. This is a great technique in the dog days of summer. You know, that late July all the way through August, even into September. The U-tail, Zoom U-tail. I have a lot of confidence in June bug. Okay, like I talked about in one of my earlier videos, when I was a kid, there was 2 colors that my parents used. My dad always used the June bug, and my mom always used the blue flake. Okay, use whatever you're comfortable with, but June bugs, in my opinion, seem to be one of the best color selections for all around fishing. I've caught them on sunny days, I've caught them in clean water, I've caught them in dirty water, I've caught them on cloudy days. It doesn't really matter. I don't know if I'm just so confident in this bait or what, but the U-tail, it's a smaller profile, so it's not that big magnum. You're going to catch a lot more fish that are smaller, but it also catches big fish. But you know, don't let a U-tail slip by you. Now, with that being said, maybe I want that more subtle action, right? And you're going to hear, I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of this over some other channels and stuff too. You know, a Cinco or dinger, whatever you want to call it. But this is the Bama bug color. It's got that green pumpkin, and then it's also got the June bug. Okay, it's a great subtle action bait. I typically run this, especially early in the morning if it's just dead slick and I'm not after the fish that are chasing bait. So maybe I'm after some fish, you know, in a little pocket or around some riprap, and there's not really hardly any bait fish around, and maybe they're feeding on crawfish more than anything. This bait right here, really, I mean, I've caught a lot of big fish. That big fish y'all saw me catch up on Warrior River is like 6.5 pounds. That's what I caught it off of, was the dinger. Now, I mean, it was just hot. I mean, hot August. I mean, it just, everything's sticky. The cameras are fogged up. It's a, you know, rough, hot weather. So, you know, your dinger's just going to be a great choice. Now, there's two ways that I run this stuff. One of the first things, I typically stick to a 1/4 ounce weight. I usually do not go over a 1/4 ounce for my own reasons. I just feel comfortable with a 1/4 ounce. I don't think it's too slow. I don't think it's too fast, but I typically 99% of the time run a bobber stop where I don't have to worry about this weight going up and down my line or trying to break my knot. Round bend hook, 3/0 round bend hook. I'm typically going to run it. I think that's O'Shaughnessy, but either way, I'm typically going to run it on my U-tail. Okay, so my worms with the ribbon tail, I'm typically going to run that round bend with those types of baits. Now, with my dingers, I'm typically going to be running the EWG. Now, the reason I'm going to run the EWG with the dingers instead of with, you know, the U-tail, the EWG just, it seems to allow for better hook penetration, okay? And it doesn't really matter to me if that dinger is spinning, because I'm typically going to be dragging that bait. I'm typically going to be popping that bait. I'm not really going to be swimming that bait. There's really not a whole lot of reason for me to swim the bait. Maybe tight line it and let it sink on a tight line, but that's about it, okay? The U-tail, you know, I can reel it, I can drag it, I can pop it, I can do multiple things, but if I'm going to get that reel or that cadence where they kind of want that speed vibe worm kind of thing going on where the, you know, the worm's moving, then that O'Shaughnessy, the round bend hook, is going to, you know, keep that bait from just spinning in a circle the entire time while I'm reeling it and stuff. So that's the reason I run that. Now, my setup, same setup y'all seen before. This is the Impulse rod. This is Lance's Fight, one of my favorite rods in the world. This is a 7'1" medium heavy action rod, medium heavy fast action rod, sorry. It's just a good all-purpose, you know, action. If you're going to buy a 7'1" medium heavy fast, it's going to be a good all-around rod. You can run swim baits, you can run worms, you can run kind of whatever you want to on it, but either way, I would suggest that. Now, I have swapped my reel. I'm running a 6'4" Abu Garcia Black Max, super cheap reel. It's like 35 bucks. Why do I run this? It's cheap, it's very reliable. I've just had good luck with these. I've had some that's been out in the weather for years, pick it up, re-spool it, and I go fishing with it. It's no problem. So, you know, I have a lot of confidence in these reels. Buy whatever you feel comfortable with. The main thing is the action of the rod and the gear ratio. The reason I want that 6'4" it's not super fast, but I have a lot of torque. So if I'm throwing that worm or I'm throwing that dinger up in some deep cover and I got to get that fish out quick, I can, because I have a lot of power and I have a lot of control, okay? If you're having trouble with slackline, if you slackline a lot, go to a longer rod. Go to like a 7'3" or 7'4". I've saw some people go all the way up to a 7'6". It just depends on how you typically fish. If you fish on very, very slackline, then, you know, go to a longer rod. But either way, 15 to 20 pound fluorocarbon. I've got 15 on this right now, but either way, 15 20 pound fluorocarbon, that's what I feel most comfortable with. Bobber stop, 1/4 ounce weight. Typically don't ever go up above or lower than a 1/4 ounce weight. That's just what I feel comfortable with. But either way, guys, that's my setup for Texas rigging. All right, so the last bait and technique that I want to share with y'all is something that, it ain't something that I invented. Like, I wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna invent this little technique here or whatever. But it was kind of like a spur of the moment thing. So we got up on this area that was just covered with largemouth, covered with spots, and they're just busting on these tiny threadfin. There's some nice fish, and we just could not get these fish to bite anything at all. And what I ended up doing, I was like, hey, I've got a little dart head. I'm gonna take that dart head, and I got some Zoom tiny flukes, but I only had one. And man, smoked them. So what I'm doing is I've got a little dart head here. I'm not even sure the ounce on this. It is so small, okay? But I'll have everything linked down in the description. But either way, I take that dart head and I take a Zoom tiny fluke, not Super Fluke Junior, not Super Fluke. It's literally called Zoom tiny fluke, and it is so small. I had green pumpkin at the time, green pumpkin, watermelon, it doesn't matter. Use a natural color. They did not want translucent or white, I can tell you that. But, you know, the watermelon, the green pumpkin, anything like that. And I take and I rig that up on that dart head. Now, here's the thing. You throw that bait out there and you reel it slow. You tight line it as soon as it hits the water, you know, get that line tight, and you're just gonna let it kind of drift towards the boat. And I'm just, you know, reeling enough to where there's no slack. I'm keeping my rod super still, and it is so subtle. There is no action at all, but it's kind of like that dinger. You want that subtle, you know, movement, and that's all that bait was doing. It was just subtle. I had it tight lining, it was just drifting down, and man, they were smoking it. Every cast, couldn't get them by nothing else. Couldn't get them by the top water walking, couldn't get them by the fluke, couldn't get them by anything else. That was the only thing we could get them by. No hard jerk baits, nothing. That was it. And it was just a sweet little trick. But either way, you know, when you're tight lining that bait and you're kind of just keeping your rod up and you're just kind of crawling that bait, it's kind of got that little, it kind of shimmies back and forth, but there's really no other movement at all. And you just slow reel it, and then you'll feel that thump, and then you'll feel them go down. But that is a super slick technique that you can do, especially in the month of August when these fish are really chasing bait fishing throughout fall. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the setup, okay? So the setup, this is gonna be, it's gonna be a little different, obviously, because we're running such a light bait. We've gotta have, you know, spinning tackle. So Lew's American Hero spinning reel. Run these for years, braid to fluorocarbon, 10-pound braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon. And this is a power rod. This is for drop shotting, dart heading, and split shotting. So, you know, that ultra lightweight, it's light extra fast, actually. Light extra fast action. Calls for 4 to 10-pound test, but you know, this rod's got a lot of give to it. And with that dart head action, you know, I get with this being such, you know, it's a light rod with that extra fast where it's got a lot of give to it. I can run my drag system up a little bit, so you know, I can have it tighter. I can make sure I get those good hook sets. And when you're running such a small wire hook, you know, when I pull into these fish, I don't really have to worry about that light wire not penetrating the fish's mouth. So that's a great technique. But now let me show y'all this real quick. Now this is made by Z-Man. This is called the Streaks. It's 3.75 inch. This is basically Z-Man's version of a fluke. Now I would suggest getting some of these to put on your dart heads, okay? This is the smoky shad color. You know, it's kind of clear. It's kind of got that black back, or that gray back with some flake and stuff in it. The good thing about this, running this on the dart head, I swapped to this because I run out of the tiny flukes. Like I said, I only had one left. But you can put one of these on there and it'll last all day. So if you do need that little bit of a bigger profile, these are still a good choice. And you can take a little bit bigger dart head with the, you know, longer shank hook and put on those 3.75s. And, you know, you're going to have that perfect balance between, you know, hook length and just the action and stuff that you're trying to get. With this little bit bigger dart head too, you know, if the fish are further down, you can, you know, drop it right down to them, sit there, shake it in front of their face, tight line it past them right above their heads or something like that, and they're really going to go nuts over this. But you know, that was a fun little technique that I never really thought about doing until I got in that situation. I was like, hey, you know, let's try something different, and it worked out. But either way, I hope all these baits help you. I hope this breakdown's a little bit different, and I hope it helps you, you know, a little more than the other ways that I explain it. But either way, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by. Don't forget, it helps me out a ton if you like the video. If the video helps you in any ways, please like it. Also, if you're new here, consider subscribing. I've got you covered when it comes to anything bass fishing, throughout seasonal patterns, all different kinds of stuff, electronics, baits, tackle setup, all that good stuff. Also, we got members only $2 a month. If you can afford it, if you can do it, great. If you can't, still great. I appreciate you stopping by. Either way, guys, I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.